The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are simply that, opinions. All are presumed innocent until proven otherwise in a court of law. Sensitive topics are discussed. Discretion is advised.
Welcome to Vinnie Politan Investigates. When Lori and Chad Daybell were newlyweds, they took off to Hawaii. And yes, they did enjoy some time in the beautiful sunshine. In fact, when they were lounging poolside, Lori received a special delivery. It wasn't a bouquet of flowers or an edible arrangement. It was a court order. In order to produce her children, JJ and Tylee. Well, Lori could not produce her children to the court because their remains were buried in Chad's backyard in Idaho. And this was the start of a very complicated and gruesome investigation. I've covered this case in depth on my weeknight show, Closing Arguments, and what you're about to see are some of the most important moments from that program as I investigate the bizarre world of the Doomsday Couple.
They are accused of leading a doomsday cult. They are accused of conspiring to murder 3 people. They are accused of funding their love affair with insurance money and stolen Social Security payments. Lori and Chad Daybell are married. Their prior spouses are dead, and her children murdered and buried in their yard. It's a crime prosecutors say was fueled by sex, money, and power. The power coming from their ability to convince their followers that the world was ending and dark spirits were taking over people's bodies which needed to be killed. Lori has already been convicted of murdering her children and conspiring to murder Chad's first wife, Tammy. And now it's Chad's turn to face a jury. Tonight, we will take a close look at his defense. First, his relationship with Lori. Was she the one who pursued him? Was she the one manipulating her brother, Alex Cox, to commit murder so she could get what she wanted? And what about the death of Chad's wife, Tammy? Was it murder or something else? Lori's other brother joins us live tonight with his insight into his family, the murders, and Chad's trial as we continue our investigation of the Doomsday Couple, Chad and Lori Daybell.
I want to bring in our first special guest tonight, joining us, Lori Vallow, Daybell's uncle, Rex Connor, who along with Lori's brother Adam, who will be joining us soon, has written the book Lori's Lies and Family Lies, and they have started a podcast called Tylee and JJ's Silver Linings. Rex, thanks so much for joining us. Great to see you tonight. You know, we listened to the opening statements today, and Lori's referred to as the Black Widow Vixen. Now, she has a history. She has a lot of husbands. So from your perspective, as a member of the family, like when she went from husband to husband to husband to husband to husband, what was the chatter in the family about what was going on with Lori?
Well, that chatter was just poor decision-making, as it is, you know, any people that end up dissolving their marriage, a lot of it, we look at a lot of it as being poor decision-making. And so there is nothing beyond that with Lori that concerned us until Joe Ryan was killed. That started really a division in the family.
Explain that a little bit.
Well, just some of the family protected Lori. Her mom and her sister famously went on TV and to defend Lori when the children were missing, but that division started earlier. And some people felt that there was more to it than just what Lori was saying, and other members of the family were defending Lori and bought completely into her stories.
Now, the number of marriages Right, and then, you know, it happens. It's not super common, though, to have one, then another. Then was this a case where she would meet someone and very quickly fall in love? Were there allegations of infidelity with any of the other husbands? Like, we know that she cheated on Charles, who we're looking at right here, Charles Vallow, who was shot by your nephew, Alex. We know she cheated on him, but were there other instances where there was infidelity?
Not that I'm aware. The first two husbands, I think, were just as you described. Quick marriages, got into it, found their mistakes, got out of it. I don't know if there's infidelity on Lori's side. I know the second husband was unfaithful. I say I know that. I don't really know anything anymore after this story has progressed and come out, but apparently not on Lori's side at that point. But and then the divorce with Joe Ryan was very contentious, and a lot of us were getting information just from Lori or her mom, my sister. And frankly, I was on Team Lori at that time until Charles was shot, or until Lori started dissolving that marriage and talking about why. And it sounded so eerily similar to her marriage with Joe Ryan. I started doing my own investigating of that, and some other members of the family did too, and that's what started the rift in the family.
Coming up next.
Lori Vallow was someone who, right out of high school, married her first husband. She then married husband number 2 a few years later. And again, very short-lived marriage. This beautiful, vivacious woman, very sexual person, and very manipulative. And she knows how to get what she wants. And she drew Chad Daybell into a relationship, and an unfortunate relationship.
Now, back to the Court TV podcast.
He was there in one of his booths trying to promote his books and laid them out there. And this beautifully stunning woman named Lori Vallow comes up. And she starts giving him a lot of attention. And she pursued him. And she encouraged him. And you'll hear testimony that she went so far as to grab behind the booth and sort of help him in trying to sell some of his books. She obviously had an interest, and maybe she felt that he was this publisher, and maybe she had an opinion. You'll hear testimony about that. Lori Vallow was someone who, right out of high school, married her first husband. You'll hear testimony about this. That marriage was very short-lived, very short-lived. She then married husband number 2 a few years later. And again, very short-lived marriage. We're going to fast forward then to 2019. Lori Vallow is still married to Charles Vallow. And the prosecuting attorney mentioned this. Yes, Chad Daybell at that point, coming in January and February, started to have communications with Lori Vallow. And yes, folks, it turned into an inappropriate relationship. 2019 forward. And yes, he was engaging in discussions. He was engaging in contact with her, all of the things that the prosecutor talked about in terms of a relationship. Chad Daybell, 29 years of marriage with Tammy Daybell, no discernible issues in his life. And then Lori Vallow comes in the picture, Miss Texas, with a testimony about this beautiful, vivacious woman, very sexual person, and very manipulative. And she knows how to get what she wants. And she drew Chad Daybell into a relationship, and an unfortunate relationship, that Chad fell into.
Lori Daybell wore white for her wedding with Chad, but this was far from Lori's first marriage. In fact, it was her 5th. And as we continue our investigation, Lori's love life takes center stage. We have another guest joining us now, Lori Vallow Daybell's brother, Adam Cox, also joining us. Adam, great to see you. Rex is still with us, Rex Connor, Lori's uncle, your uncle too, right? Let me ask you, Adam, very sexual and manipulative. Is that your sister Lori? Was that your sister Lori?
I mean, I don't know all the details of Lori's life. But, you know, she definitely is a completely different person than she was growing up and even as an adult. So she never manipulated me. She's helped me several times in my life. She did go through a turmoil in her life where, you know, I feel like she changed. So that's all I could really tell you about that.
She pursued Chad. That's what the defense is saying, right? Chad is just signing books, talking to people about the end of times, and in comes the blonde bombshell with the blue eyes. She sets her sight on her target, and she goes after him. Is that your sister, Adam?
What a target he is. No, actually, Lori has had several guys come to her, so that doesn't really seem like what you would expect. Could it have happened? Maybe. But again, I feel like Lori was already, you know, going down a path of trying to predict the end of the world and all these other, you know, things, wanting to have, you know, near-death experiences. And then when she met Chad, and Chad had all those things, supposedly near-death experiences, and claimed that he was this God and all this stuff that he filled her head with, then I think she was on board on that. You know, he told her that they were married in other worlds, that, you know, and he, you know, told that to other women and had sex with other women. He used that on several women. So it's just odd that he would just point out, or that their defense would be saying that Lori did that when Chad is using the same lines to pick up women and have sex with them. Like when Julie Rowe was on another show and she talked about that, and Melanie Gibb. And so, you know, it's, yeah, if Chad's trying to play innocent, he's not.
Still to come.
They both, Chad and Lori, knew how to manipulate him, and they did it very well.
As far as Lori and Alex's relationship, Lori was never close to Alex. The whole time we were growing up, or even after that.
Now, back to the Court TV podcast.
While Lori had 5 different husbands, there was another man in her life, her brother, Alex Cox. And when you look at the Doomsday Couple, it's clear that Alex Cox played a large role in what they were doing.
Lori's brother, Alex. You're going to hear about Alex Cox. Alex Cox was Lori's protector. Alex Cox would do anything and everything to protect, aid, and assist Lori Vallow in whatever her endeavors, without unbridled question. Anything.
The relationship between Lori Daybell and her brother, Alex Cox, is going to be a big part of the trial, a big part of Chad Daybell's defense, pointing his fingers at them, right? Away from himself and towards them. I want you to take a listen to this. I always find this clip fascinating. Alex Cox doing some stand-up comedy and joking about what he did to Lori's prior husband, not the husband that he shot and killed, Charles Vallow, but the one before that.
Have you ever had something that you knew was the right thing to do, but it turns out that later on it was a felony? This is a true story. I found out that my ex-brother-in-law was a pedophile, so I took a stun gun and I discharged it right in his...
I mean, seems to have some stage presence there, right? Let's bring back in our guests, Rex Connor, Adam Cox, Lori's uncle. And Adam is Lori's brother. They're also the uncle and brother of Alex Cox. And they have a podcast, Tylee and JJ Silver Linings, great insight, and their book, Lori's Lies and Family Ties. All right, Adam. So I know your sister Lori, I think it was Mrs. Texas. She was in a pageant there, did very well. I think you have a career in broadcasting as well. Was your brother like a performer too, Alex?
Well, you know, Alex, I think, had the most talent. He just didn't have the ambition to do the things that he should have done. But he's great with impressions, and, you know, not so great. I mean, he wanted to do stand-up, but he really didn't want to do it. I think he just lacked in wanting to put the work in to do it, to be honest with you. But yes, he was talented, and he had a lot of he made a lot of people laugh a lot of the times. He had a great sense of humor.
And you know, when we think about what transpired here, like it seems from some of the evidence I've seen that Rex becomes sort of like the hitman for this cult that Chad and Lori have created. I mean, it's bizarre. What are your thoughts, Rex, about your nephew, Alex, and his relationship with Lori?
Yeah, that is strange. I believe that's true. They became, in effect, a hitman. It's not like he was protective of Lori his whole life. It's not like they had that relationship their whole life. I think it intensified when, again, with the Joe Ryan situation, he decided, hey, I'm going to step up and be the defender here. But it really took root when he converted, and it was like a religious conversion. It was like one day he was laughing at it, and the next day he had listened to the right podcasts. It did the right things to him emotionally or spiritually or whatever it did. And he was converted, and when he got converted, he was in whole hog. And so, you know, they created, they both, Chad and Lori, knew how to manipulate him, and they did it very well. And I'm not saying they took an angel and turned him into a devil, but they knew how to push the right buttons and get him to do what they wanted him to do.
Adam, how would you describe the relationship between your brother and your sister? Because, and we've heard this interview that was done with your brother's ex, who described a very strange, bizarre, they were sort of like play acting, like they were engaging in some sexual contact. They had all their clothes on, but it's like in front of everybody. Like, what was going on between those two?
Well, you know, Rex and I talk about this. We did 2 podcasts on just Alex, just because it's hard to imagine that he went off this deep end with them. But as far as Alex goes, you know, he's as you heard, stand-up comedian, likes to joke. A lot of his jokes are inappropriate, which, you know, a lot of people, you know, if you are offended by things that are inappropriate, then yes, you would be offended by that. But joking around all the time. So I've never seen anything with Lori and Alex that was, you know, out of the thing where I'd be like, oh my gosh, that's shocking. So, but did Alex go, you know, was he, you know, inappropriate as far as trying to do some of his humor or make people laugh? Yes, a lot of comics are. But as far as Lori and Alex's relationship, Lori was never close to Alex. The whole time we were growing up, or even after that. It really just started, like Rex said, when, you know, Lori said that Joe molested her kids and wanted somebody to do something about it. And Alex was the one that says, okay, I'm going to do something about it because this can't, you know, happen, or whatever he decided to do. And that's where I think they started being closer. But even then, it wasn't like Lori would call Alex and talk to him all the time or have a close relationship with him. It just seemed like once Lori started having people read the books and watch the podcast that she wanted people to read and watch, she asked me several times to read whatever the book, The Glory Work, or whatever that book is, that I was like, I'm not reading it, and go to these meetings. I said, look, I'm not into that. I'm never going to do that. Well, Alex unfortunately did do that, and he got hooked into it. So that's where their relation started to be close. So they were never really close, or anything that's inappropriate as far as that goes. I never saw anything like that.
Let me ask you, Adam, so when your brother shoots and kills your sister's husband, Charles, did they call you and tell you what happened?
No. I obviously was the person that was outside the family. Nobody wanted to talk to me or tell me anything. Charles was dead for 3 days before I even found out. And to me, those are all red flags. Why didn't anybody tell people if it was just an accident or if it was self-protection or whatever the excuse that Lori and Alex or whatever stories they came up with to my family or to other people? Why in the world wouldn't you tell people? Why would you hide it? And why did Lori lie about how Charles died to everybody something different? I mean, there were so many red flags about it. It just really irritated me and made me mad that, nobody told me anything. So, yeah, that was a hard pill to swallow.
Freedom of religion is one of the cornerstones of our country, and all of us have a constitutional right to believe whatever we want to believe. But when those beliefs result in violence and death, the rights of the victims supersede everything. Now, it's not clear if Chad believed everything he was telling his followers, but it seemed that his followers certainly believed it, and that included Lori and Alex. And while Alex is dead, Lori will have the opportunity to spend the rest of her end days behind bars without the possibility of parole.
Now, back to the Court TV podcast.
Finding love after losing your spouse can be difficult for some people. But when you find love when your spouses are still alive, what do you do? Well, in the case of Lori Daybell, you conspire to kill your husband and conspire to kill your lover's wife. Then 10 days later, you marry your lover. If you're Chad Daybell, the prophet, you tell the world you knew your life would have 2 segments.
Lori Daybell married her husband Chad on November 5th, 2019. It was a small ceremony celebrated in Hawaii. Chad and Lori met at a conference in October of 2018 where Chad was talking about his visions for the end of the world. Chad's prior wife, Tammy, died at home 2 weeks before he married Lori. Lori's prior husband, Charles, was shot and killed by Lori's brother, Alex, 4 months before she married Chad. Lori's children, Tylee and JJ, disappeared about 2 months before Chad and Lori's wedding. This is the bizarre timeline of the Doomsday Couple, Chad and Lori Daybell. Lori has already been convicted for her role in the murders of her children and Chad's first wife. She is now in Arizona awaiting a trial for the murder of her 4th husband, Charles. Meanwhile, Chad is on trial facing triple murder charges and the death penalty. We will listen to Chad as he speaks with his daughter from the back seat of a police cruiser as investigators dig up his backyard and find the remains of Lori's children. We investigate the strange world of the Doomsday Couple, Chad and Lori Daybell.
That's what they told me, that they found human remains. And I said, well, there are several dogs that have been buried there. And he said, respectfully, Emma, I can tell the difference. It's human remains. And I asked, where was it? And he said, over by the pond under that tree. That it was in the ground and had boards over it.
Okay.
But that didn't. Jason and I have walked all over there.
Yeah.
That, and I can see in your face that surprised you. That,
We haven't seen this before. That is Chad Daybell's daughter, Emma, grown children. And you can hear in this first conversation, they're literally digging up human remains in their backyard, and she is supporting her father, doesn't believe he's involved in any of this. And to this day, I believe the children are supporting their father. He's accused of murdering their mother. It's not unusual. Seen it many times here on Court TV through the years. There's a case out in Colorado right now. No pending charges, but Barry Morphew was charged with his wife's murder on Mother's Day. There are his two grown daughters who are 1,000% supporting him. Absolutely supporting him. Despite the evidence that the prosecution believed that they had, there were some problems in that case. They had to drop the charges. We'll see what happens there. How about Buster Murdaugh? Buster Murdaugh was in court every day, testified for his father. You know what the evidence is in that case. You heard it, and he's there for his father, another grown child supporting the surviving spouse in a spousal murder case. The one that always comes to my mind years ago, one of the first cases I covered on Court TV, Dr. Dirk Greinader, up in Dedham, Massachusetts, the same courthouse where the Karen Reed case is. 3 adult children in the courtroom throughout, believing in their father. 2 of them, Yale doctors. I mean, these children, super bright. The DNA of Dirk Greinader on the bloody glove found in the sewer near the crime scene. Yet despite the DNA evidence, to this day, they do not believe that their father murdered their mother, even though he was the last one known to be with her. Wow. Let me bring in my guest to talk about all this. Joining me in San Antonio, Texas, Lori Vallow Daybell's cousin, author of the book, I Walked Through the Fire to Get Here. Megan Connor is with us. Also with us, religious author of the books, The Church of the Firstborn and Tides of Transmutation, and an acquaintance of Chad Daybell, Eric Smith, is with us. And finally, in St. Louis, Missouri, licensed mental health clinician specializing in trauma and abuse and neglect, Sharonda Brown is with us as well. Great to have everyone here. Megan, you also have a podcast. What's the name of the podcast?
It's called The Midlife Revolution.
The Midlife Revolution. Thank you so much. Sharonda, I want to ask you first. I went through a bunch of cases here at Court TV. I've been covering spousal murder cases, and I would say 19 times out of 20, those adult children will support the accused, regardless of the evidence. Why is that?
Because parents are superheroes through a child's eyes, and there is a lot of grief that children go through that says, if I accept what has happened, it's going to make my grief more intense. So I need to identify with the parent that I have left, or with that part of me that is still there, and they will connect to that, and they will believe only the good, because it helps them survive and go through a great deal of grief in a healthier way for them, although it's not, but to them it is, and that's how they keep their sanity throughout the process. But that parent will always be a superhero. You have to think roles and titles are a big form of manipulation for a lot of people, and parent is one of those top roles.
I want to play a little more of the interaction between Chad Daybell and his adult daughter, Emma. Take a listen.
If you go to Telmate, this is the card that's used.
Okay.
And so all you really do, you could probably just sign in as chad.daybell or start your own.
I have an account that I've been talking with Lori on.
Okay.
Whoa, Megan, Lori, who married Chad, what was it, like a couple weeks after Tammy died, and the adult children communicating with Lori while she's in prison. Are you shocked by this? I am floored.
Unfortunately, I'm not shocked by it, because I know that the behavior of manipulators, as soon as they get into a new circle of people, they immediately start assessing who's a threat and who can be manipulated. And so they start exerting influence wherever they can. And it looks like Lori sort of adopted Emma and tried to get to be really likable to Emma. And I think Emma commented at one point that Lori was helping her with her grief.
Wow. I'm trying to put together the dynamics here. This is, and there's a photo of Emma from Facebook. I mean, is her mom. And all of a sudden, this woman is in her life, and she's communicating with her while she's in prison. I mean, she's in prison, accused of all of what we've seen, the murder of her own children. Wow. Well, I guess at that point, it's just for the children at that point. Let me take a listen to this now. More of this interaction between Emma and Chad, talking about how things are going to be going forward with Chad locked up.
Sorry, all the neighbors are going to be talking, but you just...
We're okay, Dad.
Well,
We're okay. You raised us that we're independent now with your wallet.
glad you got
We're
that.
not Colby.
All right, there's a few things there. I'll get to that "we're not Colby" in a moment. But Eric Smith, it was interesting. Chad Daybell, right out of the box, is talking about all the neighbors are going to be talking about this. I mean, that's putting it mildly, right? I mean, once you start digging up bodies in a backyard in Fremont County, Idaho, like everyone's going to be talking about it, not just the neighbors. This was an enormous story beforehand, and now it just was bigger than big, wasn't it?
Yeah, boy. Well, I mean, I'm not an immediate neighbor to them, but sure. Anytime somebody's digging or there's law enforcement on somebody's property nearby, yeah, all the neighbors are going to be paying attention for sure.
Megan, let me ask you about that last comment. We're not Colby. So Emma seems to be commenting about Lori's son, Colby. I wouldn't even think like there'd be this connection so quickly, and yet there was.
Yeah, that would have been a great way for Lori to, exert some influence over the Daybell children, would be to sort of distance herself from her oldest son, Colby, and make Colby seem like he was a taker and like she was sending money to him and supporting him, and he couldn't support himself. By bad-mouthing Colby, she ensured a deeper connection with Chad's children. And, manipulators will change their story depending on who the audience is. So I'm sure when she was in front of Colby, she was probably bad-mouthing Chad's children and vice versa.
Yeah, Sharonda Brown, this sounds like classic Lori Daybell at this point, where she is, saying whatever she needs to say in the moment to get what she needs. And I guess at that point she needed to be accepted by the children of her new husband, who she married 10 days after his wife suddenly died.
Absolutely. The only way to betray someone is to get close to them and to be likable and to exude your charm and to make them believe that all of you is good, whatever that may be. So you want to make sure that you are doing things like being kind, being nice, sometimes playing the victim, putting yourself in a position to, be like, in the event that something comes up, the first thing people will say was, no way, that person wouldn't do that. That person's not like that. They were kind to me. They were nice to me. It is the easiest way to become the victim in a situation in which you are, in fact, the perpetrator. You have to be kind and you have to get close to the people that you are going to betray before you can actually betray them, because otherwise it's not betrayal.
Coming up next.
I honestly thought something like this. They're trying to frame him. They're trying to set him up. I didn't believe it. I thought you guys were the wackos. And now, as the evidence is coming out, I mean, the writing's on the wall, isn't it?
Now, back to the Court TV podcast.
No, Your Honor, she is exercising her right to an extradition hearing.
And when are you requesting that we have this hearing?
Your Honor, I'd like to be heard on bail, and that will determine the answer. But the short answer is, if the court keeps bail as it is, we'd like it to be as Monday, as soon as possible. If the court is going to lower bail, then it can go further out, such that she can actually make it.
Hawaii played a big role in the saga of the Doomsday Couple. They traveled back and forth to the islands more than once during their love affair. As we continue our investigation, we take a closer look. I want to go through the Hawaiian timeline with you really quickly so you understand that it wasn't just one trip to Hawaii. October 19th, that's when Tammy Daybell was found dead in her home. Then you just flash forward, November 5th, 2019, Chad and Lori married in Hawaii. November 26th, police conduct a welfare check looking for little JJ because his grandparents haven't spoken with him. Then you flash forward November 27th, police determined that JJ is not with Melanie Gibb, who they had claimed she was with. So they go to search the house, and Lori and Chad are gone. December 1st, Lori and Chad fly on American Airlines to Hawaii. December 11th, Tammy's body is then exhumed. The next day, Lori's brother, Alex Cox, dies in Arizona. January 3rd, investigators search Chad's home in Idaho. Then on the 25th, Kauai police served Lori with that notice that she must produce JJ and Tylee. That's right there, poolside. The next day, Nate Eaton from East Idaho News confronts Lori and Chad in that famous video. And then on the 30th, Lori misses the deadline to produce JJ and Tylee. And then finally, on February 20th, police in Kauai arrest Lori on a $5 million warrant. These are for desertion, non-supportive dependent children, and willful disobedience of the court process. That's a big date. March 5th, finally, she's extradited from Hawaii back to Rexburg on March 5th of 2020. So several trips down there, and she had been down there by herself without Chad before all that. Still with me, Lori Daybell's cousin, Megan Connor, and Chad Daybell's former colleague, Eric Smith, and religious cult expert, retired police commander Mike King. Eric, during all this time, when all of this was happening and you're more news is coming out and you're learning more about Chad Daybell, from your perspective, having known him, were you shocked? Were you surprised that he was off to Hawaii with Lori, that he had gotten remarried so quickly, that all of this was happening the way it was?
Yeah, shocked is a good word for it. When I first heard anything on, from Court TV or online in local news or whatever, I honestly thought something like this. They're trying to frame him. They're trying to set him up. I didn't believe it. I thought you guys were the wackos. And now, as the evidence is coming out, frankly, I mean, the writing's on the wall, isn't it? So yeah, it was shocking to say the least.
Yeah, but there's some truth to, we could be the wackos sometimes too, Eric. So that's a good dose of skepticism to carry with you. Mike King, the trips to Hawaii and tracking them down in Hawaii, the thing that always sticks with me is that they're supposed to be leading the 144,000. They're supposed to be part of this whole religious end of times group, cults, following, whatever you want to call it. And I thought I had heard him talk about Fremont County and that area being like the centerpiece for all of this to happen from his premonitions that he had. Yet he's down there, and not on the upper 48, but he's down there in Hawaii by the pool.
I'm with you, Vinny. I thought that was supposed to be ground zero for the reclaiming of this world when everything and that apocalyptic moment became known. But, the thing that today I was just shocked. You spoke about the 144,000. I was shocked when I saw that bank account today in Hawaii for $143,000-ish. And I wondered if that was the God that they were chasing.
Great point. Still to come.
Hawaii was an escape for them. It was a place that they went anytime things were not going well. I think it was kind of a way for them to delude themselves that, they could be happy there.
Now, back to the Court TV podcast.
The evidence is clear that it was Lori who first pursued Chad. She was obsessed with his books and his teachings. And Chad seemed devoted to her long blonde hair and blue eyes. But was Lori actually the first woman the married prophet pursued? Our investigation continues. What are your thoughts about Lori's connection to Hawaii? Because I think she was the one that was really connected to Hawaii.
Yeah, it was a big family connection. Janice and Barry were always vacationing in Hawaii any chance that they got. Lori's oldest sister, Stacy, eloped to Hawaii when she married Steve Cope. And ironically, the family was in Hawaii when Stacy passed away. They had an opportunity to come home and they didn't. So my idea was always that Hawaii was an escape for them. It was a place that they went anytime things were not going well. I think it was kind of a way for them to delude themselves that, they could be happy there.
Eric, this marriage is so quick and they're together so quick, and we're hearing some of the phone calls today. I love you. Was there ever any indication from your perspective when you knew Chad Daybell before all of this Hawaiian stuff happened that there was a woman in his life, another woman who had kind of seeped in there, that he was seeing this blonde hair, blue-eyed, woman that he met in Arizona?
Yes, but it wasn't a blonde-haired, blue-eyed girl. It was someone else.
Whoa.
So I did hear rumors about. Go ahead.
No, there was someone else. Please explain.
I can't give a lot of information. This came from another close friend between Chad and I, but it was clear that he was reaching out to more than one woman via text. I'm aware of one case where in one scenario, the husband became aware of this and got really upset and threatened him, said, just leave my wife alone, leave us alone, we're done with you, sort of thing. So I had heard about things like that from a distance before this, but I honestly didn't give them much credence. It was kind of surprising to me back then. So, but now, the cards are really stacking up. It's making a lot more sense to me.
Every time I see him in that dress shirt that's just a little too big, it's like a kid wearing his clothes to go to church on Sunday that, don't quite fit, that his brother handed down to him. But that's just me. Mike King, classic cult leader. Classic cult leader. It's about one thing, always with these cult leaders.
Yeah, power, dominion, and control, actually three things, and it's all about them. That is the hub of all attention, and we're seeing it happen over and again. And, as we just learned this little bit more of information, and whether it can be validated or not, we don't know, but it does remind us of one really important thing, Vinny, and that is the difference between those three personas that we all have. That public side where we saw Chad walking across the parking lot trying to put on an air that he's okay and everything's right. Then you got the private side of our lives where we do things that maybe only the people really close to us get to see the warts that we've got. But then there's the secret side, and we're seeing the secret side come out in this court case now, and that's the stuff that's going to pile on higher and higher, and I believe really lead to a conviction in this case.
Married people sometimes fall in love with someone outside of their marriage. And when that happens, many times people, they just seek a divorce, a legal separation. But many times here on Court TV, people don't seek a divorce. They seek a quicker, more permanent solution, murder. And for prosecutors, that becomes the motive evidence. For Lori and Chad, it's clear that was part of the alleged motive. But there was more at play here. The insurance money, and the power in leading their deadly cult. Thanks for joining the investigation. I'm Vinnie Politan, and I'll see you weeknights at 8 p.m. Eastern on Closing Arguments.
There you have it. If you want to see more in-depth reporting on the latest true crime stories, you can see me every weeknight, 8 p.m. Eastern on Closing Arguments. Thank you so much for downloading. And as always, please don't forget to hug the kids.
This podcast is a production of Court TV. Go to CourtTV.com for more content, trials on demand, and to find out how to watch Court TV in your area.